Okay, welcome to, what is this? Oh yeah, The Way of Mastery. Because I had already done the book that was called The Way of Astery. So I thought I would change and do the new one. I'm sure you've met a lot of people who are masters of The Way of Astery. So we're going to, I'm going to run down, first of all, real quick, the guidelines, because there's a lot of new faces in the class. First of all, you don't have to believe the ideas. You don't have to accept the ideas that are covered in The Way of Mastery. You don't have to welcome the ideas. Some of the ideas you may actively resist. Some of the ideas you may find quite startling. Some of the ideas you might find hard to believe, but that still doesn't decrease their effectiveness. I love that statement. You're not being asked to judge or analyze the ideas at all. And I love how, books always tell us not to judge, and that's the biggest bunch of crock. That's the first thing that we do, because that's how we make the world we see. The world we see is our judgment. So it's through judgment that we try to make any sense out of what's going on. The problem is our judgments are based on concepts and principles that aren't true. And so we end up in some form of pain, which we don't realize obviously means there must be something that we're seeing wrong. It's amazing how we can feel horrible and then think we're right. You know what I'm saying? It's like common sense would tell you. It's like with your body, if you have a sharp pain in your body, the first thing you think is something's wrong, that you need to get something done about that, right? But we can go through emotional and mental pain and absolutely believe that we must be doing everything right. We can be unhappy, feel afraid, and still think our thinking is right. But you wouldn't do that in an instant. If you had a knee buckling pain, you wouldn't still think everything's okay, even though you're in pain, right? So I love how when I say you don't have to believe it, you don't have to welcome it, that opens us up to hear the ideas because there's no pressure on us to have to believe it or to be converted. So at the very least, it'd be entertaining just to hear some stuff that's different from what we normally hear. That's the way I look at it, like it's way out new thought stuff. Whether it's true or not, and I personally believe it is, it still beats the stuff that you hear in the average conversation by a long shot. So I'm glad to have an opportunity to come together to talk weird on a Tuesday night for 90 minutes. So I'm going to talk as weird as I can talk. And if I do it right, you're going to like some of the things I say. And if I really do it right, you're not going to like some of the things I say. And that's what I know I'm really doing it good. Right? So I highly approve of resistance. Okay? All right. And all this came from the Course in Miracles. It's the use of the ideas that will give the ideas presented meaning to you. And the ideas themselves will show you that the ideas are true. I love that. The ideas will show you that the ideas are true. And so you want to keep and use the ideas tonight that resonate with you, seem like that's your personal message you got, and then forget the rest. And we're pretty good at that too, aren't we? Forgetting it? Yeah. So so far the instructions are doable. I don't have to believe it. Most of the time we don't. You can just forget what you don't really resonate to you. That's pretty easy. So don't put anything you hear from me or this book before the truth of your own being. Put your own being and what your own inner guidance is saying to you first. Is that cool? So I'd like to ask you, one more quick thing is that I'm going to do 10 minutes of lecture and teaching and 5 minutes of discussion and 10 minutes of question and I'm going to be very rigid about that, okay? Because this is going to bring up stuff. And I'm not going to let the ego keep us from hearing it. And I also want us to have a chance to come in and share and that kind of thing. So don't think I'm being hard, But if I don't answer the questions to the question time, don't think I'm just trying to be a tyrant. I'm not a truth tyrant. I'm really not. I promise. Okay, so I'd like to ask you to close your eyes for a minute. And we're going to bring this in. And I'd like to start out by telling you to just be in this moment for a minute. Be in this moment for a minute. That's great. stop and I want you to look within your own mind. And I want you to think about the day that you've been having so far. I want you to think about this day that you've been living so far. And I want you to ask yourself, what have I desired in this day? What is it that I've desired today? And then allow your memory to bring you the choices that you've been making all day. So I want you to think about this day, what kind of day you've had today, and think about what kind of choices you must have made to have this day. So I want you to look upon these choices for whatever feelings and perceptions and thoughts you might have. I want you to think about this day and really be honest with yourself. If it was a crappy day in your perception, don't try to pretend you had a good time today and you were one step away from diving out in front of cars on Colfax. Okay? Be real with yourself. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Okay, so we can go back to line so this we're through. Okay, now, so I want you to look at those feelings and look at those perceptions, no matter what they were, and I want you to look upon them with perfect innocence. Those were just your thoughts. Those were just your choices. That was just the thing that you were thinking about. This is just the perceptions and choices and feelings you've had today. And I want you to think about maybe some time today that you didn't really feel a lot of peace. And I want you to say to yourself, oh, in that moment, I was certainly not desiring peace. And just say that to yourself. You know what I'm talking about. You know today, you might have been thinking about it right before you walked in here. Say, oh, in that moment, I certainly wasn't desiring peace. In that moment, I certainly wasn't desiring perfect remembrance of who I really am. How interesting. See, when you get through going off, and then after going off you say, gosh, in that moment I certainly wasn't desiring peace. Then you end it with the statement, the two words of innocence. How interesting. If you went off today and you were the terror from hell, depressed and angry, somebody didn't act out your script today in any way, say, in that moment, I certainly was not desiring peace. How interesting. If you can find a moment in this day that you've lived so far, even if you began reading this lesson 5 minutes after you got up out of the bed, if you look well into those 5 minutes, you will discover that there was at least one moment today. If you try really hard, you'll find out that there was at least one moment today that you did not choose to desire the remembrance of your union with God. God being that which created you, the love that created you. Now, does that mean that you're supposed to go walking around saying, I desire union with God, I desire union with God, I desire union with God, I desire union with the higher power, I desire union with love? Does that mean you're supposed to walk around saying that all day? No, these are just words. I desire union with God, I desire union with love. Those are just words. The desire is a feeling. I'll say it again. Desire is a feeling. So when you say you desire something and you don't feel it, it's not a desire. If you intellectually say, I want a relationship, but there is no feeling behind that, that's not a desire. A desire pervades your heart. You might say, if it's a desire, you feel it in your body, which is just the depth of your mind anyway. So I want you to look well. See if there was a moment in which you were using the power of your mind to decide against love and peace. When you find that moment that you decided against your love and peace, the kingdom, I want you to just look at that moment. Observe that moment that you didn't feel peace in innocence, and simply say, you know what? I could have chosen otherwise. I acted that way, I felt that way, I felt irritated, I didn't feel peace in that instant, I got mad, I got upset. Then you go, I could have chosen otherwise. That is the simplicity and the power that the truth is. You know what? I could have chose otherwise. You know what? That was pretty interesting. In that moment, I certainly wasn't desiring peace. Okay. Would anybody care to share anything that came up for them doing that, or any feeling that they had, or anything that they noticed, or any reaction to that exercise I just took you through? Did you find yourself, when I told you or really asked you to think of something that you were upset about, or that wasn't pleasant or wasn't wonderful, that you had a hard time thinking of something? Anybody? Anybody go into, oh, I couldn't really think of anything, that any moment out of the entire day that I didn't feel anything but peace? That's great.
It was calming and reassuring.
What, it was calming and reassuring?
Yeah. It felt nice and relaxing, and it felt really good.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah.
Does yesterday count instead of today?
Well, we were just gonna start with today. We figured by 7 o'clock in the evening, you probably have had a few ego thoughts. We're gonna do a combination. I got the TWOM crew on. We're gonna do a combination way of master class sweat lodge. Okay. Yes.
Unfortunately, I had resistance, and the being told that I could choose or decide, not sure which, to feel differently. I feel like when I really do that, or when I think I am, that I'm not very successful. That it's words, that it's words followed by the feeling that, you can't really do this, or it's wanting to and having part of me saying, it isn't gonna work, you can't do it.
Does it make you feel peaceful?
No.
Okay, so if that didn't make you feel peaceful, then what we were just told was to tell ourselves, well, in that moment, or you could say in this moment, I was certainly not desiring peace.
Right.
In that moment, I certainly wasn't desiring perfect remembrance. How interesting. See what I'm saying? It's like if you didn't feel peace about saying that, then that was also an opportunity to say exactly what we were being told to say, which is, you know what? I'm certainly not desiring peace right now. That's why I feel uncomfortable about even trying to exercise that you just said. And like we were told in the other one, I could have chosen otherwise. So the healing process would be for you to say exactly what you just said, what it was that you feel a lack of peace about, and then at the end of it say, I could have chosen otherwise. You could have chosen another way to look at it other than the way that you looked at it that made you feel like it was a hopeless situation. Because the power comes from realizing that none of your feelings are just happening to you and me. All of our feelings are coming from the choice that we make moment to moment about what we're gonna think. But our ego mind tries to act like we don't have any choice about that. It just comes at us and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm upset about this. There's nothing I can do about it. And so what this is telling us is to say, yeah, that might be the way that I feel, but I could choose otherwise. Because we need to be reminded as much as we can all day long that it's our choices that are determining what we're experiencing. That's the main lesson that Spirit's trying to get across to us, and that's the main lesson that we go unconscious on. That's the main thought that people go unconscious on. You can talk about anything other than your thoughts and your choices are creating everything you're perceiving and experiencing. And you watch all of the resistance come up, and then when the resistance come up, then I say, oh, I still could have chosen otherwise. How interesting. Because saying how interesting takes away the guilt and keeps it from being such a big deal. You know, because our ego mind, the part of us that wants to keep the conflict going, it loves to make us think that we're creating some major crime every time we complain, feel bad, feel angry, or resist. Like we've done this horrible thing that has such weighty consequence. And the truth is, it hasn't had any real effect on you and who you really are at all. So thank you. Yes.
I was thinking about how usually when I'm not in peace, it has to do with some conflict of some kind, and conflict usually has to do with another human being.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm by myself, I'm pretty much content, you know, when there's nobody annoying me. And how oftentimes it's my want to have them see me a certain way, or my want to be right, or my want to, and so by saying, and I understand that on some level it's not my job to figure out that, I didn't choose peace, maybe I can choose peace in this moment. Like I don't have to figure out how that is, which is a beautiful thing. But also, if I want to try to, you know, have some insight into maybe next time, that I need to just stop caring how they view me. Because it seems to be conflict building. Because I'll be like, no, you don't understand. And then that's where the fights, the conflict.
Yeah, it's like arguing
lack of
with
peace.
it's like arguing
Yeah.
with the mirror about what the clothes is that you see in the mirror.
Right.
Instead of changing the shirt yourself and then getting a different reflection in the mirror. And so all day long, that's what we're doing. We are projecting out from our own mind and then getting upset about what we are creating. So that's perfect. That's perfect. Yes.
So, is this correct? We're changing our thought system from the ego thought system to the God, Holy Spirit thought system of love and peace and what we truly are. And this is a way to start our thinking on that track.
Absolutely.
By lessening the weight of these things that we do, making it like, I'll just choose differently next time.
Right.
So that we can forgive, which ultimately will get us to heaven.
And forgiving is the choice to see it another way. See, your choice to see it another way is forgiveness. Because unforgiveness is holding a grievance and being rigid about the way that you're looking at something, even if it's not bringing you into peace. So the minute you go, I'm making myself mad at you right now, but I'm willing to look at you another way. See, it's like, imagine how you would empower yourself all day long if you would say, I made myself mad about this, I'm making myself depressed about this, I'm making myself feel really good about this, I'm making myself feel real happy right now, I'm making myself feel real hungry right now, I'm making myself feel real bored right now, I'm making myself feel like I want to go to a movie right now, I'm making myself feel lonely right now, I'm making myself feel that everybody's cool today, I'm making myself feel that it's a great day, I'm making myself feel like it's a depressing day. If you did that constantly, you would be so empowered, it would blow your mind. Because you would be, with everything you were saying, you wouldn't be in denial about what you were feeling, but you would stop attributing any of it to anything or anybody outside of yourself, which is the truth, and then you would empower yourself and it'd help you wake up. So many people think they just need to take responsibility in terms of trying to be positive, but every time I say, I'm making myself be really turned on by you right now. I'm making myself really love your touch. I'm making myself really love your kisses. I'm making myself really enjoy holding your hand. I'm creating it. The feeling is being generated from me. I'm the one that's giving this experience, this wonderful picnic, all the meaning it has for me. I'm the one that's making the hot weather upset me. I'm the one that's making the fact that somebody dinged my door upset me. See, every time you go, I, and tell yourself it's all about me, it's all about my thinking, then you're moving toward the new thought system. Because it's not but two thought systems. Ultimately, the thought system of I'm the victim and everything is being done to me, and then the thought system that I'm responsible for how I see it and how I'm experiencing. Those are only two ways of thinking. And then it has a big variety of forms and appearances it take, right? So what this exercise was telling us was, go ahead, take a look at today, see how you felt today, and then ask yourself, wow, this day was coming from the choices that I've made. So, I could have chosen otherwise, in whatever part of the day I'm looking back on and I'm saying I didn't really enjoy that. Like right now, however you're feeling right now in this room has nothing to do with how good a teacher I am. If you're bored, you're boring yourself. If you're awake and excited, you're awake and exciting yourself. Can you imagine how much pressure that takes out for me as a facilitator? I don't feel responsible for keeping people entertained for an hour, because the truth is entertaining, the truth is intriguing, the truth is exciting. The idea of me having a peaceful life turns me on, me turning things around. If I got a good relationship, using the truth right now to maintain that. To me, coming together and doing this, to hear these thoughts that we've never heard before in ways we've never heard before, that is my turn on. The truth should be turning you on. Nobody should have to turn you on if you're really ready to be happy. So we need to acknowledge ourselves, because we made the choice to share this tonight. You could have been doing something else. But this is, the Course says, for every moment we spend together focusing on the truth, it says that, hey, it saves us 100 years of lessons. For every minute we spend together. That's sweet. Because just think about how many hundreds of years we're gonna save ourselves in 90 minutes. And since it's something that you're preventing yourself from ever going through, it's hard for you to credit it in advance. You see what I'm saying? You don't know how many things you didn't go through today because of what you believe. You don't know how many things didn't happen to you today because you're trying to be a more loving person. Just because of the way you're thinking now, there were many things that didn't happen to you today that could have happened to you today. And that's what we don't realize sometimes when we're wondering if we're making progress in what we're doing. You're sitting here right now in one piece. It might be a good chance that your consciousness is doing a pretty good job of creating peace and joy and love for you. But the part of you that hates you is not going to look for that. It's going to focus on one thing, what it is that's not right, that needs to change. So we're on page 242 if you got the book. I'm on page 243 now. Okay, we'll plug ahead 10 more minutes.
Can you say something about the section you're in?
Yeah, it's called the Observing Your Choices, which is a great title. Observing Your Choices. You also have to watch being happy or thinking that you're happy. And I'm going to say it because when a person is sometimes most resistant to hearing the truth when they think they're happy. You think it's just the opposite. But when people think they're happy because things are going the way they think they should, they have a tendency to think that means they must really know how to be happy. And they must really know what happiness is. But usually, when the average person says they're happy, all it means is the script that they have written for themselves, the fantasy they've imagined, seems to be really happening right now. So that happiness really isn't based on an internal connection with Source and an internal sense of wholeness. It's really happiness based on, it looks like some outer circumstance or relationship is going the way I think I want it to go right now. And the reason why it's not true happiness is that if that relationship or that situation changed, they would probably feel pain. And if you're truly centered, you're peaceful while you have it, and you're totally, completely enjoying it and embracing it, and you're just as peaceful if it's gone. Because your happiness wasn't dependent on it, but it was giving you a chance to extend some love. Does that make sense to everybody? So beware of thinking you got it all together because temporarily it looks like things are going the way you want them to go. But that is a great time to focus on the truth, because your resistance might not be as great if you're really feeling good. You might let more of the truth in you. Okay, so just a little tip. Just a little tip. There's a difference between real happiness and scripted happiness. Oh man, I sure do think I want to be right. That would be great. He said, the world remains uncaused by anything outside of your own mind. The world remains uncaused by anything outside of your own mind. Yet within it, you are given complete dominion. This means, I love it. When the book said this means, it actually means this means. But we go straight into analyzation, trying to give out our interpretation of it instead of going, well, what does it say it means? Well, it says that within the one mind of Christ, and we can substitute the word the true self. In case the word Christ is, it throws it off for you. You can go to true self. Individuation occurs. So within the one mind, watch the picture of this. Within the one mind, individuation occurs. See? Okay? And for a moment, perceive the one true mind as an ocean where the individual waves arise. With me? Made of the same substance. We're all made of the same substance. And you know what that substance is? Perfect freedom, perfect knowledge of and union with God. So that means all of us, whether we want to consciously admit it or not, we are perfectly free. We're so perfectly free that we can actually stay the way we want to be as long as we want to be that way without anything trying to interfere with us or get us to do anything different. It's like we don't realize that the reason, that one thing that shows how powerful we are is that we can stay unhappy and keep our habits and our patterns as long as we want to. And we don't realize that that's because we're free. That's why nothing interferes with you staying the way you are as long as you want to be that way. Because that's really a witness that you are a free being. Then it says, then you have perfect knowledge of and union of love. So that means within us, each and every one of us really know what union with our Creator is and what union with love really is. So in that freedom, the power to decide or to desire is present. And desire begets worlds without end. So that is what your entire planet once came from. That is what your entire solar system came from. That's what your entire universe was born of. It all is here. All of this is here because something desired it. Mm-hmm. We're looking at the trees, we're looking at the houses, we're looking at the sky, we're looking at the clouds, and the Square Master is saying, it's all within the one mind that desired it. So your world is born of your desire, and everything is born of desire. Mm-hmm. And there are but two things to desire. Do you know that? What's real and what's not. So how can you tell when you're desiring something unreal? It doesn't last. How can you tell when you're desiring something that's real? It never ends. That's what it teaches. Okay. Any questions or comments about that? My mighty companions. Now what does that have to do with me paying my MasterCard bill? Well, your MasterCard bill is coming from your thinking. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I've never gotten a credit card that I didn't have to agree to receive and then keep it. So even ultimately, my credit cards and my bills are my creations. They came from my desire. They came from me. All of it. That's deep, isn't it? Because sometimes, you know, people don't want to pay their bills as if they didn't get some type of product or service. And so they resent paying for something they bought. And then get mad at the credit company. And all the credit card company did was represented the part of you that says, I have faith in your future earning ability. That's what the credit card people are saying. I'm having faith in your future earning ability. And thank you for feeding hundreds of employees. So you should go to bed at night feeling like a philanthropist. Especially if you're behind on your bills and finance charges are multiplied rapidly. You are one of the most generous beings on the planet. And so when you go to bed tonight, think about all those people who are being fed through what you need. Just want to tell you that, you know. Oh, that's what I do. I go to the refrigerator and I go, wow, look at all the people that built this thing just so I can get this nice, cool drink of water. You know what I'm saying? We don't do that. We don't think about that. There's nothing that we create on our own. That there's nothing in here that any of us did by ourselves. Nothing. That you know, you probably didn't sew your clothes, probably didn't make your shoes, probably didn't make the car that you drove over here in. The whole concept of us being self-made and doing things on our own. I love when people go that I'm a self-made man. You know, it's like, right. You did every single thing that's ever been done for you to make it. Totally egotistical, totally unconscious. Totally unconscious. Okay, so here we go. Anybody comment, question about anything? Yes.
I'd like to understand changing my mind better. Is it conscious? Is it unconscious? I'm bothered by the fact that I feel like I'm making unconscious decisions that are affecting my life, and I'd like to get control of them. Or, and I'd like to see things differently.
Right.
And
that's how you do it. That's how you do it. And you may have to say it to yourself 1,000 times a day. Because the way that you think now, you only think that way, and I only think that way because I repeated it over and 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 over. That's why all of us think the way that we think. It's because it's what we told ourselves over and over and over. So the way for me to change that would be to tell myself something else over and over and over, while realizing that that old way of thinking is going to hang around for a little while until you gradually accept a new way of thinking. And these books that we study, they are the new way of thinking. So what we have to do is learn how to use these interpretations instead of the interpretations that we've learned from the world. That's how you change your mind. You give yourself new interpretations of what's going on. You know, I can look at you as cussing me out, or I can look at you as asking for help. See, it's the way I look at it that's changing my thinking. But I got to start saying that even when I want to smack you upside the head. I still got to be telling myself, I'm the one that's making myself feel this way, even though I want to hit them upside the head. I'm the one that's making myself feel that way, even though a part of me feels like I'm a victim and they're really doing this to me. You tell yourself the truth no matter how you feel, and you eventually will change your way of thinking because the truth is behind it. And so since the truth is behind it, it will happen faster. Because when you want to go toward love and you want to go toward freedom and you want to go toward the truth, now the universe is on your side. When you want to limit yourself, you have to work hard to do that on your own.
so even if I feel a nagging thing of, I'm saying this but I don't really believe it, or I don't feel like my heart's really in it, but I'm just going to keep saying it, and then I feel stupid for just saying it without
So I could choose.
I need to change my mind about that.
Yeah, I could choose not to feel stupid about saying it. Why feel stupid about something that you've already been told how you're going to react to it? You know what I'm saying? If you've already been told you're still going to have your old way of thinking, and you're going to be trying to stick to the old way of thinking while you are assuming the new way of thinking, then when you do find yourself feeling the resistance, it shouldn't be any big deal because we've already been told we're going to have the resistance. If I've already been told, man, I'm going to tell you something and it's going to upset you, and it might upset you, and then I get upset, then what do I have to be guilty about? I was already told that that's going to be, it might be part of it. So I go, okay, I'm having just the reaction that I was told I was going to have, and I have just the emotions, and I could choose differently. I could choose differently. I could see my upset as my call for love. I could say my upset is my call for love. So it's just a choice. You got two ways you can think, but you're choosing to think the way that makes you feel frustrated. Yeah.
When you had us go and choose a thing today where we got upset,
Mm-hmm.
I went through a series of, I looked at it, you said, realize that you could have chosen peace. And I said, of course I could have. Well, it's ridiculous. Well, why didn't I? Well, that's really stupid. I keep doing that. So to me, what happens is when I go look at the reality and take responsibility, the tendency is now I have to punish myself for being an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
So if I allow that to continue, then I'm gonna be not wanting to look at my choices. So it keeps me where I'm at. So if I wanna change faster, I really have to be able to laugh at it. And I did start seeing myself kind of acting out in the situation, and I started thinking, now that is silly, and it kind of, part of me wanted to just laugh. And I thought, now that was big,
Mm-hmm.
because usually I'm really beating myself up really fast. And then you said, but don't judge it. And I needed that really bad, because I have a hard time remembering to look at it without judgment. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Or if you're going to judge it the way the truth judges it, which would be judge this as something that's interesting.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's like it's giving us the way to look. It's not even just saying there's another way to look at it. It's the truth is giving us the other way to look at it. It's like actually telling us what to tell ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so to say that's interesting. Man, it's interesting how much I get upset. Man, it's interesting how much I want to beat myself up whenever I try to learn another truth. Boy, it's interesting to see how I react to somebody really being kind and loving to me. It's interesting. How interesting. See, the ego doesn't want us to do that because you would feel innocent. So you got to try to make it a big deal. We got to try to make it really a crime, you know. And the truth is telling us, no, it ain't no big deal. It's just the way you're choosing to think in this moment. Here's a thought. Here's a thought. You chose this thought. How interesting. You know, you could have chose that thought, but you chose this thought. Why did I choose this thought? Because I wanted the feeling that this thought is going to bring with it. If this feeling that this thought brings with it is a feeling of upset, anger, I feel stupid, well then I have the desire to feel stupid right now. So why would I have the desire to feel stupid? Well, it's a form of punishment for myself because I don't really believe I'm totally innocent and worthwhile and deserving. And so I'm using my thoughts to punish me, to give me my little spanking, my little whipping. Then I'll be okay again. That's what I'm using my job for, by the way. That's what I'm using my finances for, by the way. That's what I'm using my love life for, by the way. To spank my little friggin' behind because I don't think I'm good enough and I don't deserve to be happy. So where am I feeling that? Where am I feeling that? I'm feeling it wherever I'm choosing for a lack of peace. Wherever that is, that's where I'm making the choice. Okay? And if I want to keep it going, I'm going to deny that I'm the one that's doing it. If I want to keep the pattern going, I'm going to deny that I'm the one that's doing it. If I want to keep the pattern, I'm going to deny that I'm the one that's making me feel this way because I need the spanking just a little while longer, please. So I'm going to pretend like I still have nothing to do with it. It's a great plan. Except it's insane. Yes.
Okay, so say you have some traumatic experience, right, happen to you, and then you try to deal with it. You have friends like a group in here, and they try to help you deal with it, but then you're told, you know, you can just change your mind about it, and you can just see it a different way, which I want to do, but I'll be fine, and I'll be doing my stuff, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm just overwhelmed with it, and it keeps coming back. So some people say, well, you need to go talk to somebody about it, you need to have counseling about it, which sounds like a good idea, you know, if it can help. But then again, this sounds like much better, where I can just go like that, and then it's over, right? If I just see it a different way.
The purpose of the counselor is to support you in choosing to see it a different way.
Okay.
So that's the
So
advantage.
sometimes
Yeah.
it takes
So
words
to see it.
a
Yeah.
different way.
Sometimes you need a witness. Sometimes you need a reminder because we go unconscious. And when you go unconscious, you're not using the truth anymore.
I'm
And
miserable.
when you feel really guilty and you go unconscious, which means you act less than loving, if you haven't built up a network of support when you weren't crazy,
Right.
then when you do go crazy, you're just surrounded by other crazy people. who also help you feel more guilty than you did in the first place. Because even when you try to forget what you've done, they'll remind you. They'll say, and you need to be upset about this too. You remember what you did last week? If you're surrounded by those kind of people, then you need to make a new choice.
I am way crazier than
That's
I
what-
even thought
That's
before,
right.
so
That's right.
now.
Now, at first, you're going to find that out. That's going to be one of the bitter truths that happen when you become a real serious truth student. You're going to find out you are crazy as a loon. That you are crazier and more insane than you ever imagined at first. And that's the part that most people bail, because they're only able to be as happy as they let themselves be because they're so deep in denial about how unloving they are.
Right.
So most people are so deep in denial about how selfish they are that they actually think they're being mistreated, and it has nothing to do with themselves. But when you begin to be exposed to the truth, and you start to look at your own hidden thoughts, then you see where all that crap came from. But that also means you finally can get rid of it, because now you see it. And I'm gonna tell you something. That when you fill up a garbage bag full of garbage, I don't know about you, but when I do it, and I put the little thing, it's time to throw it out, I do not take the garbage out and analyze it. I just take the whole bag out to the dumpster and dump it. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to analyze and know every little detail of why you feel the way you do if you don't love yourself and you're upset. You don't have to go through the garbage bag. You just have to realize you're the one that's holding the garbage bag, and you're the one that put the garbage in the bag, and nobody else put the garbage in the bag but you. It's your garbage bag. You know what I'm saying? It's like you having a brain tumor, and then they tell you, well, bring in your best friend so we can do the operation on them. That's the way we approach it. You know what I'm saying? It's like rather than, realizing it's me that's got to change, I think you need to change. So I got the problem, but you need to change. And that's what we do, right? We go, I got the problem, but you need to change. And so the truth is saying, no, if you got the brain tumor, you need the operation. That would be the place to go if you really want to get healed. But so we are taught to feel so guilty and sinful that we make ourselves feel bad about our errors in judgment. And we make ourselves feel bad about when we get angry or go off. And we don't realize that's just coming from pure fear and guilt. That's why anybody's attacking. They're afraid. They're afraid. That's why they're doing it. The guy robbed the bank because he's afraid. The guy attacked you because he's afraid. It's just fear or love. That's the only two things that's happening here. Fear or love. That's it. Period. And fearful people are vicious and attack. And peaceful people do everything they can to maintain their peace. So it's the last thing they want to do is attack, because that attracts attack. We think you attack to be peaceful. And so that just attracts more attack. So there's this point that you have to be brave enough to not meet attack with attack. And then that's the turnaround moment on the spiritual path. That when the person, like when I told you about the Turbinator, and how she called me the N-word. And so that was my moment. I could have met her right back with the attack that I projected her to give me, and that would have perpetuated it. Or I could stop in that moment and no longer put that energy out there to come back to me by understanding it has nothing to do with me, because I'm not anything that she thinks I am. I had a choice. Now, if I had went off completely, then I should come back after that and go, I could have looked at that another way. How interesting. You see what I'm saying? Like, if I had gone off, the worst could have happened was, at some point I'd have to go, you know what? I should have looked at that differently. I should have looked at that another way. I didn't choose for peace in that moment. I'm going to do better the next time. I'm not going to do that anymore if at all possible. That's it. But in a guilty, sinful thought system, we're not allowed to make it that. Now it impacts your character and your soul and who you are and whether you're a worthwhile person.
Because you feel like you could never take it back.
And the truth is, since I'm only feeling what I'm thinking at any moment, I can take it back anytime I want to, because it's me making me unhappy. That's why I can take it back anytime I want to. See, Doc, are you with me? See what I'm talking about? If you really get it's you that's doing it, and it's you that's thinking it, then the forgiveness of it is up to you, the taking it back is up to you, the letting it go is up to you, to have a good time the next moment is up to you. It has none of it has anything to do with anybody else. That's the key to happiness.
So, can I ask a question?
Jim.
What's the, like you talk about the enlightened idea of not being reactive in the
Mhm.
sense that you don't take on whatever it is
Mhm.
going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you still dispel the other side when their perception is off? It's like, for instance, they say they experience something with you a certain way, and they're going, wow, that wasn't even the energy that I had coming from me when I was in that space, right?
Right.
So I had no energy there at all. So there was something, responding from some responsibility, like I didn't know that I came off that way, or I had no energy on it, and so therefore it's your stuff. So you don't want to say that because all that does is increase, the attack in a way.
Right,
So
well,
you're not
yeah.
purposely doing it. Does that make sense? So how do you dispel that to, and eventually it does have to be their decision that they have to believe you that that's not where you were coming from.
Right, and if you knew that, and if you know that, then that's gonna take 90% of the pressure off of you. Is that ultimately they're gonna have to change their perception if they wanna have peace. Just as much as you have to change your perception if you wanna have peace. And they're just as responsible for their reaction as you're responsible for yours. So that the thing that makes the difference is for you to be completely clear about what your purpose is. Like you said, but I know that that's not where I was coming from. So since you know that's not where you were coming from for real, then first of all, if you knew that wasn't true, it ultimately would not affect you. And what you would do, or what I would do, is first of all realize that how I'm reacting to even how they're reacting is still,
Right.
that's me choosing to do that. And also to ask them, would they be willing to look at it another way? How could I support another way of looking at this? How could we go to another level with this? To give them, if they mean something to you, then you give them an opportunity to see things differently. And you tell them you're willing to see it differently. I see that you're in trouble right now. Is there anything I can do to help support you feel in peace again? How many times have somebody done that to you? You see that the little simple things that I'm talking about, you can count the number of times that you ever hear that. First of all, you don't want to defend. Why should I defend? Because I know that I didn't do anything to you. So it's really nothing for me to apologize about. Because, I'm sorry that you're making yourself feel unhappy about this right now. What could we do to have a different experience right now? Kind of throw it out there. And if they're totally insane and they really want to punish themselves, then that's where you make the choice at that point to not engage anymore in that moment. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like if you just clarify whatever it is,
Well, see,
asking them how did that come about for you, and then they tell you this situation, like, oh, well, the reason why that happened, here's what actually happened, because they're missing some of the pieces, right?
well, in most cases, they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
So in most cases, if people ever feel like you really hear what they are saying, that'll diffuse 90% of the separation energy that you're dealing with them. If you can just let them go ahead and say it, how they feel it, even if it's completely distorted, without defending, but at the same time being willing to be present with them, the truth says that behind all of that fear is love. So if you go ahead and let them go ahead and get it out, at some point, they usually come to the realization that they could see it differently anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I can't tell you exactly how to behave in every situation, but what the truth is trying to tell us to do is to always be clear that the way we're feeling is coming from us and not from the person or the situation. Because people want to trip you into making you feel like you're responsible for how they're feeling. So you, in other words, when you first start trying to practice the truth, you're going to be accused of being cold sometimes, selfish sometimes, and uncaring. You're just going to have to deal with it. If you're sincere about the truth and you still around those parts of yourself that still believe in manipulating others through anger and guilt, they're going to attack you and call you selfish when you start to do what really makes you happy, because you finally want to have something to really give people, and you don't have anything to give people if you don't have no peace and joy yourself. So your first responsibility is going to be to allow yourself to be happy before you can help anybody else. So you got a bunch of miserable people trying to make other people happy, and they don't have no happiness themselves. That's what you're seeing out in the general public. People who don't know how to love, thinking that they're going to give love to somebody and then receive love, but they're just full of fear. And so when you start waking up and you say, I realize I have a choice, and I'm going to start choosing for what ultimately gives me the most peace, so that I can have some peace to give. People who are insecure, manipulative, who represent that part of your mind that's that way, then they're going to reflect back to you the guilt you feel about daring to do what you really want to do, because you're so used to having to please and validate, you know what I'm saying, and accommodate. So if you're used to pleasing and accommodating, and then all of a sudden you're choosing to go for what gives you the most peace, then you are going to feel guilty about it. You're going to feel like there's something that I'm not being as compassionate as I should be. And then they reflect back to you your own doubts about it being okay for you to choose what you want. And then that takes the form of them saying you're selfish, or you're not caring, or that you don't really love me. And the truth tells you this. The truth, when you study these books, they tell you what is going to happen so that when it happens, you'll know how to handle it. But the truth is, not most of us, but sometimes it takes a while for us to get sincere enough about our happiness to give something attention and study. Because you're not going to get to this level of consciousness that we're talking about without some spiritual practice, study that you do. It's not going to happen. And so this is supportive, but it does not in any way, shape, form, or fashion substitute for your own personal spiritual practice. And which is great, because everybody's going to do that when they reach their limit. And sometimes when you try to rescue people, you keep them from reaching their limit faster, so that they'll go ahead and go, there must be a better way, and then they get serious themselves. So rescuing people in most cases just perpetuates the pattern that they're in. Sometimes you have to let people go ahead and take it as far as they can take it before they get it's not going to work. And they got to do something different. But if you're trying to validate your own self-worth through being a caretaker of everybody else, you're not going to let people do that. They're going to resent you. Because you're trying to get your value from how many people you fix and how many people you help. Because they're so pitiful, they're in such bad shape. They're not powerful just like you are. They just couldn't possibly make it without your help. And it's just my way of not doing what? Dealing with my own stuff. So people used to sometimes form relationships for the very purpose of taking the attention off of their own growth. And they can make it all about the other person and not really look at themselves at all. And so when you're by yourself and you're single for a while, sometimes you need a relationship because there's just nobody to blame. So you gotta get somebody quick, because you living by yourself and you miserable. You nobody you can blame. You know what I'm saying? And so it becomes real evident that it's your choices that's making you unhappy. But if you can have somebody else around you, you can do two things. You can make them the focus, or you can hide how you really feel about yourself from yourself for a while. Because they're substituting for that sense of emptiness that you feel when you're by yourself. You see, so now your love is making me forget about this big hole over here that I got in myself, and now I'm getting disillusioned with you because our relationship isn't hiding this big hole like it did at first. Yes.
I've been looking at trying. This is awesome stuff going on in here, but I've been trying to get that out.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Really, thank you.
For sure. And I've been looking at not trying to change things from what they are. Because I got all these belief systems that things should be different. And that's where I desire that misery that you've been talking about. I'm trying not to do both of those things. Just accept them what they are, and then let go of my ideas, I guess, around a lot of stuff. And this morning I was at another room like this. It was hot, it was spiritual. And I had a bunch of ideas.
Spiritual, I like that.
I had a bunch of ideas running in my head that were contrary to what was going on. You know, I thought things should be going different, and then the heat started getting to me. And before you know it, I'm like, I wanted to leave. I'm like burning up, and I had an experience before this meeting about telling some truth about my ego and those kind of ideas and that. I got incredible freedom from that. I came in here feeling good. When I went to one this morning, I didn't want to go. I had all these ideas, and there's a complete difference around it. And it tells me that it's the truth, that what you've been talking about. I need to change what I'm desiring. That's the reason that there's a difference between right now and then this morning.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. And see, a holy relationship is just a relationship where you are with someone that y'all don't want to forget that. It's like it's great to be in a relationship if you're only going to use the friendship or relationship to keep each other aware that you're choosing and you're innocent and it's just interesting and that was just a choice I made. Then being in a relationship is the best thing you could do for yourself. But if you're in a relationship with someone and all they're doing is helping you forget that, then you know that's your desire is to forget it. They're showing up because of your desire not to remember, right? So.
I want you to make some posters.
I've just formed a committee, and you're the head of poster.
Okay.
Perfect. Drunk with power. Okay, so here we go. So take a breath. Just take a breath for a minute. Shake it off. 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 Sometimes you literally have to do that. Just kind of shake it off. This is sobering stuff. This is sobering stuff. How interesting.
How interesting, I would say. Yeah.
Interesting that you would say that.
Very innocent.
You'll know how innocent you want to feel about the beer by how you feel afterwards. Notice we follow pleasure with pain a lot of times. We have a really good time. We dancing half naked on top of a table with a lampshade on our head, and then the next day, we feeling all bad and sick. I mean, this is just an example. I know nothing about this.
Yeah.
Okay, you understand that? Right. The key to transformation: assume complete responsibility. The key then to the transformation of your lived experience while your body lasts a little bit is to assume complete responsibility for how you are choosing to use your mind. Remember, only you can think a thought, only you can have an idea. The idea cannot enter your domain over which you have complete dominion unless you have sent it an invitation that's simply the way it is. So what did that just say? It's saying that there is no thought that you have in your mind that you don't invite. Because somebody could say something to you, but it's you that have to be willing to buy it. And it's you that have to be willing to accept it. So no thought has to come into your mind unless you are the one that decides to invite it. So it's no such thing as you just got to think like the way the crowd thinks. And there was a time that everybody thought the earth was flat. That didn't make it right. So the one person who thought it was round, they probably wanted to do them in. That's us now. That's us. If we're willing to take responsibility and believe that we're infinite beings and that we are creative and that we're love, we are the people who think the world is round with the people who think the world is flat. But the people who think the world is round, or the people who think like we do, we recognize each other. And the people who don't think like we do, they think we're just like them. So you can be peaceful with them too. Because they're just assuming you're like them until you open your freaking mouth.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's how we do ourselves in. It's like they assume that you think that they think until you say something. And so that's how your ego gets you. And then when you're around people that do think like you think, you recognize each other. You just do. You'll notice the way that they handle themselves, the way you just know it. So when you're around people who still believe in victim consciousness, your job is just to be in their presence, remembering the truth that they've forgotten, period. And then asking Spirit if there's something for you to do to show you what it is. And so that's it. You don't have to convince them about anything. You have to tell them nothing. You notice that whatever the higher beings are, if there are higher beings, which I believe they are, notice that they're not exactly saying anything to us right now. like in a physical voice, like talking to us right now? Why is that? Because they know what the truth is. And so since they know what the truth is, they don't have any reason to convince us of anything, because they know we're going to find out what it is sooner or later ourselves anyway, if it's the truth. So what do higher beings do then? They wait to see how willing you are to be assisted. And if you're willing to be assisted, then they're glad to help you move as fast as you want to move. But they'll never, ever try to force any kind of change, information, truth, or anything else on you. That's why they're quiet. And that's what you're doing. If you think about it, probably around most people that you're around, they don't really know what you're thinking, but you're thinking it. And they need to be around people that think the truth, that want to take responsibility, want to be more loving. They'll feel it. They'll know it. So whatever you're thinking right now, tell yourself, I invited it into my mind, or it wouldn't be there. It is a mirror of what God is, which is infinite and perfect freedom. That's God. God, or infinite and perfect freedom, simply never deviates from desiring only the extension of love, the birthing of that which is like himself, you. Your will is joined with your Creator's when you decide to birth only that which reflects love, the good, the holy, and the beautiful. So how do I know when my will is joined with the will of my Creator? You know what? All I want is to be a means for good to come to you, love to come to you, and something beautiful to come to you. Now, if that's all I really want my body to be used for, my will is now one with God's. God wants me to have love and joy and happiness in my life. I finally want me to have love and joy and happiness in my life. I'm no longer buying into that stuff that says I don't deserve it. So now my will is one with God's. So it's not until you're ready to have the good, the beautiful, and the innocent that you're really sincere about saying my will is one with God's. As long as I think I want to suffer, my will isn't one with God's. Because what created me doesn't want me to suffer. That's what this thought system teaches, because this thought system is based on unconditional love with correction when I make a mistake. So it's not saying we don't make mistakes, but it's saying whatever mistakes we make, they're just for correction, not to be punished forever.
That's logical.
Isn't that logical? But if I hate me, and I think I need to be punished, then I'm going to beat the hell out of myself without any help from anybody else, because I still think I did. I'm going to keep going back to that, because people keep saying, well, why am I miserable? Because you want to be. But why do I want to be? Because you have unconscious guilt and fear and thoughts of unworthiness that you're not aware of. How do I get rid of them? First, you got to admit you have it.
And then what?
Then you listen to the way you're being told to look at it and start using that interpretation instead of the stuff you're constantly telling yourself. Okay. Knowing that in the very beginning, you're not going to believe what you're saying. In the very beginning, you are beautiful and innocent. I can tell you that and it means nothing to you tonight. But I guarantee you, if you heard that 1,000 times, some part of you start going, maybe I am more beautiful than I thought I was. But you're not going to make that, I don't know. And I never in my life have I pounded in a nail with one blow. And I don't know anybody that has. I don't know. I never go by a construction site and watch the carpenter go, BAM!
That's very loud.
BAM! But that's what we think. We think we're gonna say. We think we're gonna say this stuff one time, half-assed, every now and then all of a sudden we're gonna be in bliss consciousness forever. And it's like it will happen fast. It actually will happen fast. But get real. You know it's gonna take more than you saying this half-heartedly every now and then for it to start to affect your consciousness. But that's just common sense, right? So why don't we speed it up? How do I speed it up? I got a spiritual practice I do every day. I make sure I read at least a chapter of the Course in Miracles every single day. Every single day. I do my workbook lesson every single day. I try to use every situation that comes up as an opportunity to remember this all day. And when I screw up, I try to tell myself, that's interesting. I could have chosen another way to look. In other words, I got to freaking do what he's saying. That's what I gotta do.
Are we in question time yet?
No, we through with question time. The question time went a long time, so we're gonna go back to it.
Yes, we better.
Yeah.
Oh, that was question time.
What was your question?
Well, you're gonna get mad because
No,
you're
no,
gonna be
I
like,
promise
I
you I'm
just
not.
told you.
I promise you I'm not.
Well, not mad, but it's gonna feel frustrating. Okay, here's my question.
Mhm.
Do you have any motto or something to remind me that I can tell myself whenever I wanna feel like shit about myself and therefore talk shit about everybody else?
Yeah, study this book. Get a
Okay.
copy of this book.
That's what I thought was
And
the
get a
answer.
copy of the Course in Miracles and
There's no-
study it and do what it says. And you could say, I'm giving this all the meaning it has for me. I'm never upset for the reason I think. I don't understand what anything is for. There's another way of looking at this. I'm determined to see things differently. I rest in God. I'm entitled miracles in this situation. Only God's plan for my happiness. It's like you got 365 of them just in the workbook alone to change your mind. There's no way it's going to change until you give it some attention and study and application. Yeah,
Like they didn't make 365 lessons because we needed 5?
right.
Is that what you're saying?
Right. Or
Okay.
do one lesson 365 days. You know what I'm saying? But the Course says everything is a matter of motivation. And what I realized from having done this so long is that's exactly the truth. It's if you're motivated, you got to be motivated. You got to really be motivated. You got to go, I have reached my limit. There must be a better way. If you haven't reached your limit, that's why you're not being proactive. It just means you think you're unhappy, but you aren't unhappy enough yet. Okay. I'm telling you, that's what everybody in here. If you find yourself unmotivated to do this, it's just you haven't reached your limit yet of whatever it is you're going through. But you will, and that's the good news. You will. So, chill out. Right now, it's okay. You just, you innocent. Take your time. Take your time. No problem. It's okay. That's okay.
One more day of misery isn't so bad.
I know my way around that.
Yeah.
I built a whole life around that.
Yeah.
This happiness stuff, I don't
I
know what it is, right? So then it goes on to say, the mind as you have come, and this is going to cover just what y'all were just talking about. The mind as you come to know the mind will deceive you into thinking, well, if I live that way 95% of the time, then what the heck? 5% of the time I can do something else. That's absolutely true. The more you come to truly desire only that which reflects the truth of who you are, you will be able to tolerate less and less variance within yourself. That's why when any mind truly, get this, when any mind truly begins to awaken, and this is interesting, when any mind truly begins to awaken, it becomes more and more painful
Yeah.
to continue certain thoughts or behaviors that do not reflect your deepest desire. So that means the more you start to get this stuff, then it's more and more painful to you when you're not doing the things you love, and you're not doing the things you can get your heart into, and you're not doing the things that motivate you. It doesn't get, because you're studying spiritual truth, it doesn't become less painful. It becomes more painful when you're not practicing it and applying it to yourself. So that's why I tell people, don't mess around with this stuff if you're not serious. Because if you are not serious, you're going to be more miserable than you were when you first walked in the door. So now you realize what's going on, but you're not willing to do nothing to change it, so you feel even worse. Because he's saying that once you experience a relation, like right now when it comes to relationships, it's just certain things that are deal breakers for me. I don't even have to go there anymore about wondering about should I proceed in this direction. If there are certain things happening for me in a relationship or anything now, it's like I'm not dealing with it. Because I've had relationships with people who are trying to be conscious and trying to be loving, that you can sit down and try to talk things out, and they want to take responsibility, and they're wanting to study together, and they know you both got egos and you go crazy and you're willing to try. So the once you start having those kind of relationships, even though you still got an ego and y'all both still got an ego, you think you're going to get into a relationship with an unconscious person who never focuses on the truth, who's blaming you for everything else just because of the way their body looks? or just because of the money they have or the house they have. There was a time when, that would have been the winner. I remember that, yesterday. But, you understand what I'm saying? The ones like he's saying, the ones you experience the peace, then you're not going to be able to tolerate the stuff that you used to tolerate. And you think something's wrong with you because you think you're supposed to be more patient because you're studying. No, if you're getting this right, you're more impatient with pain. You're more impatient with guilt. You're more impatient with not having your freedom. You don't become more patient. You become more impatient about mistreatment. Impatient about being on a job that you hate. Impatient. You won't be patient about anything that doesn't bring you peace. The once you start to wake up, and that's what he's saying right here. This is why the gap becomes less and less, which is what? The gap of unconsciousness, the gap in which the mind tries to defend its choices and perceptions until finally your mind rests in complete vulnerability. That means your mind lives in complete innocence. And listen carefully. He says, then you get to the point that your mind lives in complete innocence and no longer, and please listen carefully, it no longer fears change within its system of thought. In other words, your mind no longer fears being challenged by another mind, because your mind thirsts only for the creation of the thought system that can bring forth the good, the beautiful, and the holy. So in other words, like when I read this, I'm not reading it from the perspective like I used to in the past of, is this true? How many flaws can I find in it? How many ways can I come up with that I think this doesn't work? My perspective now is, I want to change my way of thinking. So therefore, I want to give this a shot to see if it works. I no longer fear being challenged by anybody else's mind, because I don't care what anybody else is thinking. I'm thirsting for the creation of a way of thinking that only brings me good stuff. You see what I'm saying? I don't have time to deal with how everybody else thinks and everybody else's validation, because now, he says, I'm at that point where I just want the new way of thinking that's going to give me peace all the time. So once you make that choice, you really don't really care anymore about whether anybody else agrees with you or see it the way you see it, or still trying to figure it out how it works, because it's already been figured out for me. The thought system has already been given me. The things for me to say to myself to get past my blocks are already here. I just need to start doing it. I'm not trying to figure out whether or not I buy this. I'm not at that stage anymore, because I reached my limit. And then when I started to do it, I still got an ego. I'm still working through my ego. But when I started to do it, like he said, I started to have more peace. So therefore, when I wasn't in peace, it was too painful. And I don't like not having peace now. You know what I'm saying? I don't make that normal anymore for me to not be peaceful all the time, because I'm just a human being going through what human beings go through. But if you be honest with yourself, so much of our peace is coming from, lack of peace is coming from the relationships we form with ourselves and the relationships we form with others. And if we be honest with ourselves, most of us don't have over 10 really close people that we're hanging out with all the time and seeing every day and talking. We might have a lot of impersonal relationships, but if you be honest with yourself, your really intimate personal friends probably number less than 15 people. And those 15 people are your world. They're the ones you're getting the greatest amount of witnesses from. That's why the most important thing that you can do is be discerning about who you choose as your intimate, holy relationships. Because that's your world. They're going to be reflecting back to you most of the time either something that's inspiring you or something that's making you buy into the fear and separation more than anything else. When people say they're unhappy in relationships, they can usually narrow it down to 1 or 2 people or 3 or 4 people. So we really don't have a lot to overcome, is what I'm saying. Don't let your ego build it up. You're at peace with 99.9% of the population of the earth. Am I saying something that's not true? 99.9 more than that, not messing with you. They don't care what you do. They don't stop you from going where you want to go. You just got about 2 or 3, 4 or 5 people that give a damn about anything you do. And I just pardon my French. But our ego try to make us think it's all these people overcome. No, it's your boss. No, it's the 2 people in your family. It's the memory you have about what happened to you when you fell on your head out of the crib when you was 3 years old. So now you won't let yourself have no lovers for the rest of your life. You know, we really don't have as many obstacles to our peace, and that's what he's saying to us now. And we are waking up, so we will not want to tolerate the pain the way that we used to. Mm-hmm. He says, then he talks about how your mind is going to operate. He says your mind will no longer explain. Now check this out. When you wake up, you're going to stop explaining to people. You're going to go, you know what? That's not how I felt in that situation. That's not how I felt. That's not what I meant. And if you really would like to know what I meant, I'd be glad to share it with you. But if you want to insist on looking at it that way, I'll just wait till you change your mind. But in the meantime, I'm going to have to go about my business now, because this could be over if you wanted it to be over. This doesn't have to go another minute, because I'm willing to join with you in peace. I'm willing to go beyond this upset that you have with me. I'm willing to ask, how can we go beyond this? But if you want to still stay mad at me, you're innocent, but I'm no longer going to engage, because I'm no longer going to defend. I'm no longer going to seek to convince. I'm going to merely abide and give myself over to the stream of love that wants to flow through me. He says, every idea presented by another mind becomes something to live with, something to digest, to see if there's a jewel within it that can add to the beauty of my own expression of the good, the holy, the beautiful. In other words, everything becomes a gristful meal. So let's take the situation that Kobe was saying just a minute ago. Okay, so here's another man that thinks that they're upset with me. Where he says, well, what you would do when you start to awaken, you're going to say, okay, this is something to live with. This is something to take a look at, right? And then it says, I'm going to digest this. I'm going to be present with you, and I'm going to really hear what you're saying. And to really show I'm present with you, I'm going to say back to you what you just said back to me. I'm just going to report it back to you. So you think that I really ignored you when I came in the room, and I really didn't give you the kind of acknowledgement that you felt you should have, and I was being selfish in terms of not checking on you all night when we were together to make sure that your needs were taken care of. That's what the person just said. So you're going to mirror it back, which is going to get rid of a lot of their defensiveness right now, because most people don't even feel heard. And the mere fact that you're actually hearing them starts to diffuse the situation, because you're going to digest what they're saying, and you're going to try to see, is there anything good out of what I just heard? Is it any kind of jewel in this stuff that this person just said to me? Is it anything I can get out of this that I can use to add to the beauty, the good, and the holiness of my life in this situation right now? So I'm listening to you in terms of what you're saying that could be helpful to me. What are you saying that I could somehow use this to help me become a more loving person? And if they're presenting something to me, even if it's something I don't agree with necessarily, it's no accident that that's being said to me. So I might want to ask, is there anything I need to realize out of what they're saying? So therefore I'm digesting it, I'm listening in terms of how can I use what you're saying to help me relate to you better, relate to me better, to allow our relationship to be stronger and our friendship to be stronger. That's where a conscious being is listening to you even when you're mad. They're listening, and they're not defending, they're not convincing, they're listening to what you're saying, they're being present with you, they're not trying to figure out the next thing that they're going to say while you are talking. They're actually being right there with you to the point they can say back to you. They didn't say they were wrong. They just said, did I hear you say blah, 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 blah. They didn't say that I think you're right. I just want to make sure that I heard what you're saying. And how could we go beyond this? Because I'd like to have peace with you. I would like for this to be, this separation to end. And if they still want to hold on to it, then you realize in that moment that you just need to breathe and peacefully withdraw. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Because if they still want to hang on to their grievance even after you said that, then you know they just want to separate. That they actually don't want to join with you. They really using it for justification to get away from you. Because you just gave them an opportunity to join with you, to heal it, to be close again. They didn't take it. They want to be separate. They want to stay separate from you. And so at that point, you breathe and you give yourself space. Because at that point, they need to get off of you to get a better perspective of you. They can't be close up on you at that point. So what you're doing is giving them a chance to get a new perspective.
And then if they decide they want to heal, it goes the opposite direction, then is there more conversation, or is it?
Well, if they want to heal, then you say, let's get together and let's talk about it, and let's see what we can come up with that works for both of us. Because you always want it to be a win-win for both of you. Don't ever come up with an agreement with somebody that they get what they want and you don't get what you want. Because that's what goes for love in this world. You sacrifice what you want for somebody else and then you're being loving. No, you want a 200% solution. It's two of y'all, so you want a 200% solution. And a 200% solution is a solution where both people win. That you come up with a way that both of you feel that you were treated fairly and dealt with fairly. And two people who really want peace will always be able to come up with that. If both people want peace, they're going to have peace. You know, I have had friends who got divorces and never stopped dating and never stopped hanging out with each other. Sit down over the table, decided how they were going to deal with the property and everything else, and never had to involve any kind of a lawyer except at the last minute to do the little bit, and still want each other's happiness. It doesn't have to be the way we read about and see in the papers. That's the way it is for people who are unconscious. Not bad, not guilty, they just are not aware of how to actually deal in a relationship of love and how to handle confrontation and don't know how to handle upset because they didn't take the time to learn. They just think it's just going to happen. You know, it's going to happen. So if you're sitting here hearing me say this, then that's the proof that you're at the level of consciousness that you can have conscious relationships that you have more peace in. That's what it means that you're sitting here. You wouldn't be hearing me if it wasn't a part of your mind that was waking up. You wouldn't even be in this room. And that's something to be proud of, that we did want to come together to hear a higher way to feel about each other and love each other. So let's acknowledge us. I'm going to stop right here. Let's acknowledge us. Even hearing this much. Let me do the financial expression of appreciation. If you haven't signed the contact list, and I send out links every week to these classes that I record, you might want to sign this so that you can be on the list, and I can let you know about workshops and classes. Does anybody that need to be on the list? Thank you, brother. Yeah. Those of you on the internet, here you go. Let me get it to you. Those of you on the internet, I want to thank you for all the kind of good support and comments and emails and all the other good stuff that I've been receiving. And want to let you know that I'm available for my clarity session, and I can do it on Skype or a phone session. If you go to my website, it explains exactly what my personal one-on-one sessions are. And I look forward to doing that with you. And that's at www.earlpurdy.com. And you can also sign up for the email contact list on there. I'm also available for one-on-one coaching and mentoring where we get in these books, and I give you a lot of tips about how to get past the blocks to doing it, because that's what we're here for, to help each other and to love each other. That's what I want to offer to anybody in here too. Okay. Sunday at 1 o'clock is the next Course in Miracles class, and I'll be doing that. So let's just kind of wind it down here for a second and just go back into that place again of just kind of going into a place of meditation and just receiving. It's okay if you don't pay attention to anything I say, And it would be helpful if you did. Okay. So I'll say this one more time because I think it was so powerful. When you begin to awaken, it's going to become more and more painful for you to continue in the thoughts and behaviors that do not reflect the deepest desires of your heart. You will find that you cannot tolerate minor intrusions of discomfort the way you used to because you're finally beginning to realize that you deserve better. And so you will stop defending your choices and you'll stop defending your perceptions, and you'll be in a state of complete vulnerability and openness because there's nothing for you to defend. So at that point, you're going to start living in complete innocence. And that means that you're going to stop being afraid to change your way of thinking. You're going to stop trying to defend your old way of thinking. That means you're not going to fear anybody challenging you anymore because you're only going to be thirsting for the creation of thoughts inside of you that only bring you what's good and what's beautiful and what's abundant and what's happy. That's what your mind is going to be on, receiving your natural abundance, not on being concerned about somebody else challenging the way that you think. So once you begin to wake up, you're going to no longer explain. You're going to no longer feel like you need to defend your point of view or anything. And what's really cool is you're no longer going to feel like you need to convince anybody. You're going to just give yourself over to love. You're just going to be going, I just want love, I just want freedom, I just want peace. And so every time somebody does present you with their ideas, whether they present you their ideas because they're angry and misperceiving, or they present their ideas because they're appreciating and loving you, what you're going to do when you're listening to people is you're going to digest what they're saying, and you're going to see if there's something about what they're saying that has some kind of a gift for you, something that you could use to create more peace for you, or more recognition of truth for you, or even more closeness between you and them. So you're going to listen, and then you're going to hear what they said, and then you're going to speak to them. You listen, you hear, and then you speak. And you ask your higher self, what should I say to this person? What should I say, Holy Spirit? What should I say? And then you will no longer need to be in defense. Your body won't be all tightened up. Your breath will not be growing short. There will be no vulnerability in a negative way. You will no longer feel a need to hide. You will no longer be concerned